Architects of Prosperity, Episode 2.
Welcome to the Architects of Prosperity with your host, Ryan Lopez. This is the place where architecture meets investment and designs fuel profits. Join us as we build legacies and bring visions into reality. Your journey to building prosperity starts now.
Hello, welcome to Architects of Prosperity. My name is Ryan Lopez. I am your host. Today we have a fantastic guest. Her name is Breanna Williams. She is a seasoned interior design expert with over 10 years of experience and an impressive entrepreneurial spirit. With a focus on hospitality design, Breanna has become the driving creative force behind numerous thriving short-term and medium-term rental properties, transforming them into highly desirable retreats for guests. As the founder of Mumford Designs, she excels in creating spaces that captivate and generate high rental income. Her designs blend aesthetic appeal, functionality, and an understanding of design psychology, turning properties into profitable investments. Outside of her professional life, Breanna is a dedicated mother of four. When she's not immersed in a design project, she is either cheering on her children at soccer games or indulging in her love for antiquing with coffee in hand. Breanna, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, we're happy to have you. We talk about design a lot on the show, and you are the perfect guest for that as an interior designer that focuses on real estate investment and investing. Tell us a little bit, first of all, how you got started in that career path.
Yeah, it's not far off of kind of what my dad does. And growing up, I was trekked around to all of the model homes and things like that from my parents. So kind of just naturally grew up with a little bit of an inkling towards interior design. And pretty quickly in high school, after doing a couple of projects on, what do you want to be when you grow up? I realized pretty quickly that was the route that I wanted to take. And I just set off on that path right away. So I've been doing it now for almost 14 years.
Fantastic. And when did you decide that you wanted to go into short-term and mid-term rental design?
In 2020, I actually left my corporate retail job and doing interior design for a corporate retailer, home furnishing showroom. And I opened up my own boutique firm. And in that, my husband and I had talked about, now that I had a little bit more time on my hands, maybe we would go into real estate investing. And I thought that might be a good opportunity for me to kind of begin my portfolio, both in interior design and investments. And so, of course, I dove in and I learned everything that we could learn about short-term rentals. And we had planned on opening our own short-term rental in our local mountain market. And before I could even get my own cabin, I started designing for other investors. I just began kind of networking and plugging in with other investors. And one thing led to another. People started asking me to do their properties. And that was, I would say, right around 2021 when I really started niching down and working primarily with investors on their investment properties.
And how many investors do you work with currently?
Oh, gosh. Right now I have probably 5 or 6 projects on the books. They're all in different phases. Some of my investors are more DIY friendly, so I'll perform the design for them and source all the materials, fixtures, finishes, furnishings, and then they will kind of work on things. So I have a couple of people who are house hacking and they're, working on the property themselves. So they've been working on it for several months. So they kind of we touch base every month or so on, whatever project it is that they're focusing on, but they already have their full design, right? So then I do have that consulting still on 2 or 3 projects, but I also have a new build, one that we are wrapping up. And then of course, I also have a couple of properties that I help to co-host. And so we have a few small design projects that are on our co-hosting properties as well that we're currently working with.
Okay. And what, if you can just tell our audience, what are some of the differences between short-term and mid-term? And, what are the thought processes behind those two design avenues?
For sure. From a design perspective, I personally think they're quite a bit different. There are certain nuances to the types of avatars that you see between STRs and MTRs. The primary difference is essentially short-term rentals are anything less than 30 days and medium-term rentals are anything over 30 days. The average stay for a medium-term rental is probably going to be around 3 months or 90 days. So when we're thinking about the way that people are using that space, obviously, if they're planning to live in the property for 3 months or 6 months at a time, they're going to be using that space a lot differently than they would if they were just coming with their family to vacation for the weekend or the week. So the priorities behind guest experience are going to be different because they're utilizing the spaces differently. And at the end of the day, I always walk my clients through designing for their specific type of avatar. It just helps them market that property a little bit better, and it ensures that their guest is going to have, a supreme experience, 5-star worthy. So that really generates and motivates the design.
And for those who are listening and don't quite understand or know what an avatar is, can you explain that to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So much like in marketing, when you have a marketing avatar or whoever it is that you're trying to market your business to, we look at these rental properties the same way. They are independent businesses. So you want to know who you're marketing your property to. And we dig into demographics and psychographics. So things like age, do they have children? What ages are their children? What motivates them to actually book the property? It could be that, our avatar might be somebody, it could be a male in their 50s traveling for work. And so that's what's motivating him to book. He just needs a place to rest his head at night and he's going to be working X, hours of the day. Or on the flip side, it could also be an entire family who might be relocating due to a flood or a fire in their home. That's a common avatar that we see with medium-term avatar or guests rentals. So it just depends. It's ultimately the avatar is who you anticipate to be staying in your property, whether that's short-term or mid-term. We'll have avatars. So we just have to figure out who that is.
So I can understand how an avatar would be really helpful in a midterm because oftentimes your property and the location dictates what you're going to be focusing on. For example, if you have a rental property that's very close to a hospital, you might be your avatar might be traveling nurses, something like that. How do you pick an avatar, and what does that look like for short-term rentals?
The same way I do with midterm rentals, I prefer to allow the market to dictate our avatar. I also try to lend the same theology to the short-term rentals. So we just allow the location to really dictate who our avatar would be. For instance, if you're in Nashville and you're really close to all the bars, walking distance, etc., you're going to attract a lot of bachelor parties. Pick one and then drive home that design. So obviously, if it's a bachelorette party that you're really going for, you want to include amenities that they're going to appreciate, a long vanity that can, host, 8 to 10 women all getting ready at the same time, maybe some kind of sound system in there. I've seen a few that are really fun that, bring in like disco elements or something music related because it's Nashville, right? Whereas on the flip side, if it's a vacationing family, if you are by the beach, I have a property that's by the beach right now that we're co-hosting, and that's definitely the avatar that we're looking to target. And we do that both in the design and then obviously in the copyright on our listings using keywords that are going to attract that type of avatar.
Okay, now that we have an avatar, how do you start the design process when you're thinking about the avatar, and what does that look like, and how does that workflow go?
For me, I try to put myself in that avatar's shoes. So I will do research. If it's traveling nurses, I don't know anything about nursing. I don't know anything about the medical profession, but I'll make it a point to learn a little bit about that. Or another really great example is I actually did a design for a sober living facility. And in that, I actually listened to a lot of sobriety podcasts. I got into the mindset of somebody who would be looking for a sober living facility, transitioning out of potentially a rehabilitation program into just normal life. And what does that look like? And we really thought that through. And the owners and I both decided that it was definitely a space of healing that we wanted to provide. So looking into how the environment was going to affect mental health, physical health in terms of the cleaning, the materials that we were using in sourcing products, things of that nature, and just how that would impact the environment. And then adding amenities like a garden that would encourage people to get outdoors, move their body around, that really supports all of the different types of wellness within the guest that's living in the space. And then also like a yoga room or a spiritual room where they could practice some spiritual wellness as well. So that's probably the best example of how we were able to really dig into who the avatar was and design a property that benefited the avatar.
So no neon beer signs.
Definitely not for them, right? The bachelorette,
Understood.
maybe. The bachelor
Yeah.
party, maybe. But see, that's where it's so important to know who your avatar is and design it to attract that person. Because of course, if you do want to attract the sober living, guests, you don't want to have something that's going to deter them in any way.
Great. Now, moving forward, do you ever design, or do you think it's a good idea to design a rental property that can shift avatars?
Absolutely. We always have secondary, tertiary avatars in mind, and we make sure that we're not going to put anything into the property that would deter those additional avatars from renting. For instance, a property that I did in Garden Grove, midterm rental, due to both HOA and city restrictions, they cannot run as a short-term rental. So we were on a strict midterm rental, which helped to dictate our avatars. Now, yes, it's around tons of hospitals. So we knew that we were likely going to see some type of traveling medical professionals. However, the rates that the property owner was hoping to achieve, that kind of dictated the level of design that we were going to provide. And in that, we were naturally going to be attracting somebody who could pay a little bit more. So that wasn't your average travel nurse who has sometimes a lower budget. We figured we were going to be more so attracting traveling doctors, anesthesiologists, things of that nature. And in that market research, we also determined that there actually are quite a bit of international travelers that come in through Santa Ana John Wayne Airport, the nearby airport. And we actually in the first year did see 3 bookings that were international travelers. So we made sure that we were bringing that aspect to the design in some way, shape, or form. So not only to attract the nurses and the medical professionals, but also potentially those international travelers who are coming to stay for maybe 4 to 6 weeks at a time.
So at that point, you wouldn't dive in and like put a lot of stuff that would attract or be interesting to doctors necessarily, but you kind of have to split it. Like, okay, what would this painting or would this thing, that you're putting in the space, would it speak to both, people traveling out of the country and to doctors?
I think I lost you. Oh, there you are.
Did we drop you?
I think so. I think I missed just the second half of that question.
Yeah, so basically I was looking at the fact that you're basically designing for both a doctor and somebody traveling out of country. And that could be very different. And how do you mix and meld the two avatars that are so completely different that you would not necessarily have the same types of, you know, things in there? Like if it was just doctors, it would be easy to pick out certain types of artwork or interesting things. Maybe you'd put up some anatomy posters in frames just because it's fun. They might think it was kind of cool, but not necessarily a foreign traveler. So how do you split the difference?
So, a couple of the things. Initially, we created a profile for each type of avatar that we might potentially see. Our original, what transformed into our international traveler was actually just extended vacationers. And we looked at that from the perspective of who can afford to vacation for 4 to 8 weeks at a time. They either work remotely, so we needed to provide a space where they could work remotely, or they were older. So that was kind of where we started to fall into things. And if you stop and consider international travelers, you're probably not getting international travelers who are going on a 4, 6, 8 week vacation from somewhere in Asia or Europe, you're not going to get those that are usually in their 30s or 40s. They're probably going to be in their 50s or 60s. So that really dictated what types of amenities and where we needed to focus our attention in terms of the design. It also kind of told me that while we did want to have an updated property, we certainly didn't want it to look outdated at all. We did need to kind of we didn't want to go too modern. We needed to keep things pretty level across the board and then stick with earth tones or neutrals so that we weren't deterring, anybody that could potentially be in their late 50s, early 60s. They might not be attracted to, hot pink or neon yellow, mustard yellow. So we kept things pretty simple. Luckily, the community is already called Greenhouse. My property owner is actually from Hawaii, so he really wanted to bring a little bit of his personality and his culture into the property. So we used some greenery that kind of just led us into, using some green tones throughout the property, and it kind of just fed the design. But always in the back of my mind, I'm thinking about who's using the space and what's going to be expected from them. More than likely, somebody who is in their 60s and wants to cook dinner, they're probably used to different types of appliances than maybe those that are in their 20s. What I mean by that is most 20-year-olds can't afford a Vitamix at home, so they're not expecting to get a high quality blender. But, somebody who's traveling, who that is what they use at home, they might be disappointed if they walked in and saw the Black & Decker blender from Big Lots. So we had to think about that when furnishing the property. And then, like I say, just including amenities.
That's incredible, actually, when you think about it. The amount of detail that can go into a design like this is pretty astonishing.
Yes, most certainly. I use a checklist that I will customize, of course, for every property. And we dig into absolutely everything, including what are the expectations? What do these people have at home? Especially in a midterm rental, when they're living there, you do have to compare it to what they have at home. And much the same as in the STR world, you want it to be equal or better than what they're used to at home, so that you're just really providing that 5-star experience. It ensures that 5-star review, which is going to ensure potentially repeat guests, but of course, word of mouth recommendations, etc. So you do want to think things through from the moment that they wake up to the moment that they go to bed at night. How are they using the space? Is it convenient to access? If they're bringing in groceries, how do they do that? Where are they going to set things down? And just really every little detail. It makes a huge difference, especially on the guest experience side of things.
It occurs to me that it's no wonder hotels seem to be stepping up their game. They have a lot of competition from short-term and midterm rentals.
Absolutely. I will say it is a ton of work, don't get me wrong. But of course, it's a bit more attainable when you're just doing a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, as opposed to, 200-300 units in a hotel. And then in most of the cases, hotels also have these, other hospitality spaces like a spa or a restaurant or a bar, that kind of thing. So of course, it's a little bit more attainable for the typical STR, MTR owner to be able to compete with the design that you get out of some of the hospitality sector.
Okay. Now we've gone through the design aspect of this and how to pick an avatar. How do you work on the finishing touches? What's that little special thing that you do that you think that maybe not a lot of other designers think of?
Well, here's what I can say. In a lot of STR and MTR design, it is common to work with a remote designer, and either the designer will supply the design and it's up to the property owner to execute the design, which means that a lot of times those finishing touches, just like the decor and small things like that, they don't necessarily get thought of in quite as much detail as the rest of the design, because of course the designer can't go and pick out every candlestick and every vase and mirror and stack of books, etc. And we want it to be pleasing to the eye. I mean, you've gone through the efforts to create this design that is not only functional, but eye pleasing. And then sometimes that can fall short if it's not accessorized properly. It's like the jewelry to your outfit. And if your jewelry doesn't coordinate with your outfit, or even worse if you have no jewelry and it's just, it just doesn't translate or communicate exactly what it was that you wanted to. So I find that I prefer working with clients who are local to me. Of course, I have done some virtual designs that can be executed, but that person would have to have a pretty keen eye for design and, to be able to accessorize it to communicate the rest of the design. Whereas if we're in person, I can't tell you how much I over purchase intentionally so that I have options in the space. Especially like even just last week, we were finishing the decor for some custom built-ins that we had installed in a bedroom. And you've got 12 shelves, 6 on each side. So you have to think that through. It's a lot of accessories that it does take, but how do you do that to where it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg? And then you want the accessories to be functional. So just considering who's using the space and how they're using it, and maybe making, working in a lamp. Maybe it's a battery operated lamp that can be recharged, or maybe you're going to work in a clock, or even finding sound machines in bedrooms that are aesthetically pleasing, or, a charger. They have some really great charge mats. And if you can include something like that, again, it looks beautiful and it's an accessory. It's jewelry in the space. But at the same time, when that guest gets in there and they go to lay down at night and they want to charge their phone, how easy to just set it on the mat next to the bed. It's just that extra level of, wow, they thought about everything. And that comes from really the last couple of days when you're accessorizing the unit.
Kind of doing that one last walkthrough as getting in the head of the person that's going to be using it.
Exactly. And then I should also know, you over purchase and then you install, and then whatever you have left over, you just return it. Right. So
doesn't magically end up in your home somehow.
Right. I mean, sometimes it does, but most of the time it's all items that will, just go right back. Or, I mean, for me, because I do what I do this so often that yes, I have a whole inventory that I pull from. So if it's something that I know I can use in another project, I just save it for the next one. But when a homeowner is doing this and they're setting this up, it's definitely just over purchase. Use what you know that you can, and then you have options. You don't have to, go back out to the store 3-4 days in a row. You can get your accessories done in one day, and then you can go do your returns, the next weekend or whatever the case may be.
Now, of course, you're the designer, but it sounds to me like you do at least a little bit of the work yourself. How much of that do you actually do?
I do full setups. That's my absolute favorite thing to do. Like I said, I am thinking things through from the get-go all the way down to the very, very end finishing touches. And I'm a little bit of a micromanager. I like things to look a certain way. So I wash the laundry. I mean, I have a team that will come in and help me on the, when we're doing the final accessorizing and things like that. And a lot of times opening boxes and stuff, I'll generally have a couple of bodies with me because it takes time for that. I also have a delivery team that sometimes will just handle all of the boxes, all of the furniture assembly, and then just have everything ready for me until I show up. But I do like to set up. I like to fill the shampoo and conditioner bottles and make sure that everything's labeled just so. I like to fold things a certain way so that there's a standard that's set for that property, and everything has a place. That doesn't necessarily mean some properties I have seen where we are going to label, but it just means, just everything has a place, and then the cleaners will know now that it's set up this way, this is what they should be following for future turnovers. So yeah, I like to do it all. It's my favorite part.
So you went to school for interior design, and you kind of fell into this because you can do so much with interior design. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
How does one, if they're interested in doing something like this, how do they get into this? How would they design their career and move toward getting into this kind of hospitality design?
I think again, it's the same as finding your guest avatar. You're finding the avatar of your client. So just think about who it is that you want to work with. And what it is that you're passionate about. For me, in school, of course, we did a residential thesis project and we did a commercial thesis project. And I enjoyed much more thoroughly the residential thesis project. Now, this was 14 years ago. Actually, at this point, it would have been 15 years ago. But, when we went through those classes, we had to come up with the client that we were working with. And I say that with air quotes, right? We had to design our own client. And I found it much more enjoyable to create that residential client. Who are they? Where do they like to eat dinner? What are they, what vibes do they get when they're at their restaurant or bar or coffee shop? And then replicate that in their home. And that is essentially what I do now. I create the avatar, I allow the market to dictate who the avatar is, but I create that avatar and then I design a space for them. It's fun. It's a very creative process. I have a lot of freedom in that creative process because, this is a rental and we're just kind of picking who we're designing for. And so when you're designing your career, just think about who you want to service, what you're most passionate about, and then align yourself with clients who find passion in the same things. So health and wellness, if you're in the health and wellness space and you're very passionate about that, learn about biophilic design, learn about how your environment affects your body and how to design in ways that support your health or the health of those that are going to be enjoying the spaces, and then find people who also have that passion, whether that's a homeowner or whether that's businesses that share the same passion, and you can provide that in a commercial aspect or in hospitality or working with investors, whatever the case may be. So I say, just think about who you want to work with, and maybe they share your values, and then set your business up for that, and find the ways that you can best serve them. And then that puts you ahead of the competition because you have you're focused with a specific group of people that that you can perform for and really give them a really good experience.
Okay, that's great. Love that. And with that, I think it's time to move into our mini segment section. And I think let's pick. Eventually, I'm going to get a wheel back here, I think, so we can just spin the wheel and
that'd be
pick
fun.
Because I have a lot of ideas for mini segments. So I'm always sitting here looking at the list, going, what would be a good mini segment to do? So let's do a quick tip corner. In this segment, we're going to do we're going to look at it as an actionable tip. If somebody was looking to do something for their own short-term, midterm rental, give them a good actionable tip. How would they start thinking differently about it, more professional like you?
Definitely look at it as if it is a business. So many people look at it as, let me just put furniture in this property and then start renting it out. But you want to look at it as a business. You want to have your financials in line. You want to have your marketing plan and know where you're trying to go. What are your goals for your business? And then allow that to, dictate how you set everything up.
Great. Now, an investor toolbox. Give our listeners something that's an invaluable element that would serve them well if they were going to start looking into a design project.
Oh, certainly. I was thinking investor toolbox, like the people that you need in your corner, right, as an investor. But if you're going specifically starting into a design project, you want to have a good designer, plain and simple. And you want to have a designer who has a good team behind them, which means they come with a good contractor, they come with a good photographer, they come with a good delivery team or moving company who can get, product from point A to point B and get it installed quickly and get it installed appropriately. And then for me and my clients, I also include, reps and sources that I have here that are local to Southern California, because I mentioned I prefer to work with local projects. I mean, they're all over Southern California, but here in Southern California, we have so many resources where we can pull from, available inventory, and we can get properties furnished so quickly. So just know who you're working with and make sure that they have a team behind them that supports them, because that team becomes your team.
All right. And last but not least, let's do a quick fire round. It's just going to be a series of questions that, should be pretty quick to answer. And it'll give people an idea of where they can look, a little bit more about you, all of that stuff. So what is your favorite design book?
Ooh, I am right now reading Still. I can't I can send you the name of the author, but I can't think of the author's name. But it's all about the new still movement and creating spaces that just allow people to be still in their home. So that's what I'm reading right now, and I'm really enjoying it.
Ooh, is that sort of is it all related to like feng shui or anything like that? Anything that's interesting Eastern philosophies at all, or?
There are a lot of different philosophies that she's pulling in, but ultimately she's talking about creating a space that gives harmony and balance to your life. And there's not a lot of distractions. So making sure that there's not a lot of clutter, having fewer items, a lot less decor, things of that nature. And then just making pieces timeless so that you don't accumulate a lot of things over time.
All right. Okay. What is your favorite color?
Oof, black. That's not even a color technically, but honestly, it's in every project. I use black in some way, shape, or form. It's so versatile.
It's my favorite. I'm always wearing something that's black or some shade
We're
of
both
black.
we're
Yeah.
both wearing black today. Yeah.
Isn't it funny? I find that a lot of designers, that is their favorite color, and it's probably because it's the absence of all color, so it goes with every color. And
Exactly.
so it's the most,
That's true.
in an odd sense, it's like the most universal color, even though it has no color. I don't know.
And it's fun to be able to work the same color into all of these different projects, different styles, different, spaces, and use it in different elements in different ways. So yeah, it's funny because you wouldn't think black lends itself towards a lot of creativity, but I think black might be one of the best ways to show creativity. You can't use too much of it. You can't use too little. You have to just get it just right.
When I used to actually do art and stuff by hand, I used to actually love using a black canvas or, black background or something, and then throwing color and light on top of it rather than adding shadow. Because when you're working on a lighter, medium, it's all about color and shadow. And the light comes from essentially, your canvas, your background. But when you use a black background, now you're thinking about light and color rather than, so it's a little bit different. I like that. And
it's the reverse.
Yeah, I used to love using black backgrounds and stuff when I was doing presentations. Okay, let's see. What's your favorite state in the Union?
A state in the Union?
Yep. The United States of America. What's your favorite state?
Okay, I was like, that's a hard one. I have a fondness for Tennessee. It's where my family is from, the Smoky Mountains. So that was like where we grew up going on vacation. So I absolutely love that because to me, it's relaxing. We were always on vacation when we went, but I also absolutely love California. I love that, especially in our little pocket of the Inland Empire, we could be at the mountains in 45 minutes. We could be at the beach in 45 minutes. We have a little bit of everything here, and our weather is great.
All right. I love that. And one last question. How can people, if they're interested in contacting you, get in contact with you?
Yeah, most simply, we have a website, www.mumforddesigns.com, or you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at Mumford_designs.
Excellent. Breanna, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really enjoyed our conversation. And of course, we love repeat guests. So if that's something that you'd be interested in, we can really drill down and maybe talk about one of your current designs, and you can share some design techniques with our listeners.
That would be super fun. I'd be happy to.
Great. Well, thank you again, Breanna, and we'll have you back again soon. Take care.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening to Architects of Prosperity with your host, Ryan Lopez. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit reijunction.com, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Architects of Prosperity.